Good evening. Welcome to Buddha Dharma TV. I am Nidarsha Korituaku from Toronto, Canada. We begin our program with sacred chanting of the Ratna Sutra. It is conducted by Venerable Vatala Silaratnam from Sri Lanka. One of the fundamental teaching of Buddha is the Four Noble Truths. One who realizes the Four Noble Truths will be free from eternal suffering. So said the Buddha. Here is Venerable Ajahn Chalo of Australia to explain the Four Noble Truths in Buddhism.
So as the legend goes, Lord Buddha recently enlightened under the Bodhi tree. It is said that he considered not teaching, and the reason, it says, is because beings in the world relish self. They're very attached to this concept, this habitual way of experiencing, perceiving the conditioned reality. And what he had realized was not self. The conditions, the five aggregates, various ways of describing them, the bodies and minds of beings, these are referred to by Lord Buddha as conditions, sankhara. And most beings are trying desperately to get those conditions to work for them, trying to arrange the conditions, rearrange the conditions, and always from the perspective of being a self, being a being. And this causes a lot of problems, because when there is a self-view, grasping, then there's craving and aversion. And we can see all the trouble that gets beings in around the world. Various passions, lust, love, irritation, aversion, hatred. So he thought it's going to be difficult to teach these beings something that is so against the grain. From his perspective, standing on what's referred to as the other shore, he could see how few people make it to that shore. And he could see that most beings were going up and down the other shore. So the other shore means everything from the hells to the highest heavens, Avicii hell to the highest Brahma realm, where beings make good karma, make merit, be generous, practice ethics, have metta, are forgiving, are patient, are generous. They head towards the heaven realms. On a foundation of generosity and ethical behavior, they head to the Brahma realms when their samadhi develops. Their merits become exhausted, they fall down to a lower realm. Beings who think that get affected by wrong views, the way to be happy in samsara is to take what you can, just look after yourself, get whatever you can, and ruthlessly take care of yourself and your family. If they behave in ways which are unethical, bad karma, and those ones are reborn as dogs, cats, snakes, crocodiles, ghosts, hell beings, demons. And so it's this game of snakes and ladders in samsara. And we're very fortunate because Lord Buddha, from his perspective, understanding the conditions and understanding the conditioned realm perfectly, as we chant in the morning chanting, the knower of the worlds, teacher of gods and humans, he could see the whole picture. So he explained to us what the ladders are and explained to us how to avoid the snakes, which is very helpful. And nobody says it's easy, but it's definitely easier when you have an instruction manual. I remember kind of growing up and the confusion and the pain that I would feel as a young boy and as a teenager. Why is the world like this? I actually wanted to understand. I was in religious class as an 8-year-old boy, and the Bible teacher, in Australia in those days there was only Christian religious education, and the Bible teacher was saying, Jesus was God's only son, and God gave up his only son for the sake of our sins, and God created the world. And I went home and I asked my dad, Dad, if God created everything, why is Jesus his only son? Aren't I God's son too? And my dad said, you don't need this bullshit in your life, mate. And he wrote a letter and he took me out of religion class. But the thing is, I actually wanted to understand. And I also asked him, why, if God is powerful and created everything, why are some people poor? Why are there wars? And so, anyway, at religious class time, I was stuck in the library reading Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach and other Roald Dahl books. I did not get my answers. So it took some time. And I was attending Goenkaji's retreat, people Goenkaji Vipassana retreat at the age of 21. And I didn't know I was a Buddhist yet. I was just interested in meditation, and some of my friends at the vegan cafe had told me, there's this 10-day retreat. You'll probably like it. And so it was when Goenkaji explained the Four Noble Truths, and then finally I felt that I'd found some teachings that made sense. Because I'd been wondering, why is it that other people look like they can be happy with a career or a beautiful lover, sensuality? I remember sitting on the beach once as a 20-year-old in Sydney, eating focaccia bread with sun-dried olives in olive oil, olives, avocado, snow pea sprouts, drinking a glass of champagne, looking at the sea, looking at my beautiful friends, and wondering, is this really all there is? And I was I wondered if I had mental illness at the time, because other people seemed happy. And I was like, well, if I get myself a job that pays more, what? I'm already eating Kalimata olives, I'm already eating avocado, I'm already eating handmade Italian, I'm already drinking nice champagne. It's like, is it really going to be any better? I'm already on a nice beach with a beautiful view. And there was this awareness that this isn't making me happy. Similarly, are we allowed to talk about this? When having sex as a young man, like young men do, there was this sense of, this isn't love. Even though I love the person, why am I thinking about someone else sometimes? That's interesting, isn't it? And there was that in me that noticed that. If this was really love, and if you really loved this person and you were content with this person, you wouldn't be thinking about this other one. So I was confused yet again. How come other people can fall in love and be happy? That's what the movies say. Anyway, Goenkaji explained the nature of conditions is unsatisfactory. And I'm like, yeah, I feel unsatisfied. This makes sense. Sensual pleasures, as pleasant as they may be, they arise, stay for some time and cease. And then if you have the same sensual pleasure often, you begin to get bored of it. And then as soon as you're separated from it, it ceases, you're hankering after the next one. And Lord Buddha describes that as like a dog chewing on a blood-stained bone. There's never any meat. He also says it's like a person up a tree trying to get the fruit when someone down below is chopping down the tree. It's dangerous as well when we follow our passions. So I was ready to hear that teaching. And I personally suspect that this is the result of practice in past lives, that it wasn't mental illness, it was probably mindfulness and clear comprehension, a little bit of wisdom, that sensuality is flawed and doesn't fulfill, and that it is not a refuge. So it took some time to find the Buddha's teachings again, and then we're going to have a look at these Four Noble Truths in the first sermon. Why did Lord Buddha put dukkha first? I mean, when people criticize Theravadan Buddhism, they say, oh, dukkha, 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 banging on about suffering again. These Theravadan monks, so boring. And because, it's much more attractive to the mind to think of visualizing yourself as a celestial bodhisattva or a Buddha and getting an empowerment, right? But I've attended the Dalai Lama's teachings many times, and he says himself, people should not practice Vajrayana Tantra until they've had some working insight into not self. Otherwise, they just cultivate more sense of self. You're visualizing yourself as a Buddha, but you've still got this latent grasping of self. Oh, now I'm a Buddha. You can become more arrogant. It's like one has to know how to use these tools, and the Vajrayanas say themselves that the Vajrayana is for people with superior faculties. And I don't know if the people who practice Vajrayana actually ask themselves, am I one with superior faculties? Do I have a working understanding of not self? Have I had some insight into emptiness? Because that's where we have to knuckle down and do some work. Reducing the sense of self, reducing the amount of identification, having some insights into the three characteristics. The reason Lord Buddha has to start, I believe, with dukkha, the conditions are unsatisfactory, is because if he doesn't say that very, very clearly right up front, we're going to be trying to fix the conditions. That's what he said beings are committed to. That's why he said we're difficult to teach. So he has to kind of, the way I see it, slap us in the face right in the beginning and say, wake up! It's not in the conditions. And so, fortunately, he also says there is an unconditioned. Unfortunately, he also says that realizing the unconditioned is unshakable peace. And he says that peace is the highest happiness. So it's not depressing at all. It might be bitter medicine. It's bitter medicine because we have a serious illness. And Lord Buddha is giving us the medicine that works. We have to weaken and lessen our delusion. Of course, we have to work with those conditions, and Lord Buddha explains us how to do that. That's the Eightfold Path. We have to work with the conditions because we are in a realm where karma is all-powerful. So we have to work with karma. We have to have right speech, right thought, right livelihood, right action, all these things that bring the wholesome vipakas, the wholesome karmas as a result of our wholesome thought, speech and actions. We need supportive conditions in order to practice, to develop insight. But Lord Buddha explains to us the insight is not in the condition. The condition is, this is the raft that we have to learn how to use as we paddle across the seas of samsara and try to get to the other shore. So we start with the first noble truth. And so I'll read a little from the Dhammacakka Sutta, formal teaching, day 2 of the retreat. Let's start at the beginning, the first formal teaching that Lord Buddha taught. I'll read it, just listen, you don't need to read. Thus have I heard, once when the Blessed One was staying in the deer sanctuary at Isipatana, near Benares, he spoke to the group of 5 bhikkhus. These 2 extreme bhikkhus should not be followed by one who has gone forth. Sensual indulgence, which is low, coarse, vulgar, ignoble and unprofitable, and self-torture, which is painful, ignoble and unprofitable. Bhikkhus, by avoiding these 2 extremes, the Tathagata has realized the middle way, which gives vision and understanding, which leads to calm, penetration, enlightenment, to Nibbana. So as we all know, students of Buddhism, the Bodhisattva, left the palace, studied with the most gifted meditation masters of his day, and cultivated all of the Arupa jhanas, so that he must have already had, one assumes, the first 4 jhanas, which are referred to as Rupa jhanas, and then his first teacher taught him the 5th and 6th Arupa jhanas, the next teacher taught him the 7th and 8th. Because of his profound mindfulness, he could see that the most illustrious, amazing, wondrous, boundless samadhi states degenerated. They arise, stay for some time, and cease, like all other conditions. So he realized that was not the unconditioned. It was not deathless, it was still bound by death. He was searching for the deathless. Next, he tried the austerities in the cave, 6 years. He said his stomach skin touched his back skin. He said that another yogi in the history of samsara may have suffered as much as him during that time, but no yogi ever suffered more. That's quite a profound statement. And it's good to consider in terms of giving rise to a sense of awe, gratitude, respect, love, when we think of what Lord Buddha did to have this insight in order to help us. He could have become enlightened as an arahant under a previous Buddha millions of lives before. He delayed his enlightenment in order to help us. Sometimes thinking of that can make the mind very joyful. And he did notice it's not working. So during that time he didn't allow himself to enter jhana. His body was so emaciated that he couldn't. It was just brutal, patient endurance with painful racking feelings of a very, very emaciated body. And incredible. But he had the insight, the middle way, perhaps combining some samadhi with focused contemplation. Perhaps this might be a way forward, and it was. The middle way he describes as the Noble Eightfold Path, namely right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Truly, because this middle way, understood by the Tathagata, produces vision, produces knowledge, and leads to calm, penetration, enlightenment, to Nibbana. This because is the noble truth of dukkha. Birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, death is dukkha, grief, lamentation, pain, sorrow, and despair are dukkha. Association with the disliked is dukkha, separation from the liked is dukkha, not getting one's wishing is dukkha. In brief, clinging to the 5 khandhas is dukkha. So, does anybody think that aging is fun? Anybody looking forward to dying of cancer? So, Lord Buddha has a point, doesn't he? So this is the bitter medicine. This is the slap in the face. From the very beginning, birth is unsatisfactory. It can be described in different ways. Suffering. There is suffering associated with birth. I think my mother was in labour for 10 hours to have me. I thank her on my birthday. Thank you, Mum, for putting up with all that pain. And she says, you're welcome, it was worth it. That's what she says now. With 10 hours of labour pains, flesh tearing, oh my God. And people do say that, oh my Buddha, people do say that, birth is marvellous, it's a miracle. On one level it's true, but you can't deny that there's a lot of pain around it as well. And separation from the loved, association with the disliked. It's even the kings, right? You get to the peak of the conditioned positions in samsara, in terms of the world. You get to be a king. Okay, then people plot to kill you. You want to be a noble, peace-loving king, the next kingdom comes and invades. What do? You have to defend the kingdom. War. It's just miserable. So, fortunately, there are 3 more noble truths. The cause of suffering, the craving which causes rebirth and is bound up with pleasure and lust, ever seeking fresh delight, now here, now there, namely craving for sense pleasure, craving for existence, and craving for annihilation. This, bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the cessation of dukkha. Very, very interesting statements about craving. And this is this thing about Lord Buddha thinking it would be frustrating to try to teach people because it's going for the craving for and the craving not, these first two hindrances. People in Thailand often they don't quite get it. They come to me, some of these people who have great dana-barami, great faith, but not much wisdom yet. And they come and they say, Luang Por, I don't want to be born anymore. I've had enough of samsara. Can I not be born, Luang Por? And what does Luang Por have to say? It's like, well, yes, you do. I think you can sit there all day saying, I don't want to be born, I don't want to be born, I don't want to be born. And guess what? You're going to be born. That's not how it works. So until this point, you had lots of craving. You wanted the husband to behave properly. You wanted the children to be smart and go to university. You wanted to look young for a long time. You're completely committed to sensual craving and bhava tanha until the husband didn't behave. The children were naughty. The looks faded. Now she comes, I don't want to be born anymore. Now, it's not always women, sometimes it's men. The wife cheated on them. That happens too. So you have to undo the causes for rebirth. That means letting go of the craving for and the craving not for. And this is where we keep our precepts. This begins to put the kilesas in a container where they weaken. And Lord Buddha says the mind is like a wet log sitting in water. And if we want to have insight, and we want to get real samadhi, real insight, we have to take the log out of the water, put it on the bank, and allow it to start drying out. Otherwise, it'll never catch light. So that's beginning to keep the precepts strictly. This means we can't, there's parameters around how much we can express our craving for and craving not for. And then there's becoming energy, right? It's like people ask you when you're a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an astronaut. You know, whatever it is, I want to be a singer. We train to do that. Become something. Make your mum and dad proud. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a billionaire. I want to be a trillionaire. And Lord Buddha says there is no river that floods like craving. There's no limit to how much craving. That's the tendency, isn't it? You are a millionaire, then you want to be a billionaire. You are a billionaire, then you want to be a trillionaire. The world has some very big problems now because greedy, rich people don't know the right amount in their greed and can't restrain themselves. We have a shrinking middle class and an ever-growing poor class and a smaller and smaller rich class that have more and more conflict, more and more difficulties. This craving of river causes a lot of problems for a lot of people. So that's why Lord Buddha explains this is part of the Eightfold Path, the being generous, knowing the right amount, sharing what you have, giving rise to mental joy, not sensual pleasure, the joy of knowing that you've been kind and generous. Then the ethical training, then the mental cultivation. This is how we sow the causes not to be reborn, not by sitting there with aversion. Sitting there with aversion binds us to the wheel of samsara, just like craving for pleasure does. The third noble truth, this, bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the cessation of dukkha, the complete cessation, giving up, abandonment of that craving, complete release from that craving and complete detachment from it. This, bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of dukkha. So the way leading to the cessation of dukkha, weakening, uprooting, abandoning all of that craving. So how do we do that? Well, we're coming on to the path factors next, right? Mindfulness, right? Concentration. It's not just a matter of weakening the craving, is making the darkness in the mind much less oppressive, so that the other path factors associated with the mental cultivation can begin to penetrate to see ultimate truth. In the beginning, we might practice a lot, but if there's still a lot of darkness in the mind, we may not have the liberating insights, because it's a gradual training. Lord Buddha often refers to it as a gradual training. We have to weaken. He says his teaching is for those with little dust in his eyes. So as we were talking about before, when the Tathagata was reluctant to teach, a Brahma god came down and said, "Please teach, Lord Buddha. There are those who will understand." And he said, "Those with little dust in their eyes." The newly enlightened Buddha surveyed samsara and could see that beings were like lotuses. Most little buds down in the mud. Those ones can't be taught, they won't understand it. Those are the ones that think you just have to grab what you can get and push the other person out of the way. That's the path of happiness. Then there's the ones that are up, coming into clear water, beginning to have a nice bud. Those ones can be taught generosity, to be good, not to harm others. But there are those that are right near the surface of the water, nice fat, ripe lotuses. Those ones can be taught the threefold training. And there are those that were already above the water, probably those who had practiced with previous Buddhas and under different sanghas, faculties very ripe, already somewhat blossoming. Probably the Sotapannas and the Sakadagamis, those who have realized the Dhamma to some degree. So Lord Buddha saw there are beings in samsara who can benefit from this teaching if I explain it. There's an interesting Buddha statue that you can see in Nepal where the newly enlightened Buddha has one leg up and he's resting his head on his knee. And I asked him, "What does that mudra mean?" And I said that was when he decided to teach, and he was figuring out, how am I going to teach these people? And so, fortunately for us, he recited 84,000 Dhamma verses over 45 years, and he taught and liberated millions of beings, so we have a lot of teachings. This bhikkhus, the fourth noble truth, is the noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of dukkha, namely right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So, that's what you're doing now. Contemplating wisely, trying to think wisely, applying antidotes to the various hindrances and kilesas, bringing the mind to a sense of more equilibrium, cultivating mindfulness in all postures, and cultivating right concentration on meditation objects, recommended by Lord Buddha, and then this is when the insights become possible. So when we weaken the craving by restraining speech and body initially, in terms of uprooting it more deeply, getting down into the roots, it's seeing with mindfulness and clear comprehension where the attachment is. It's normally not that difficult to see why. The second noble truth, the cause of suffering is craving. So it's like when there's suffering in the mind, we can have a look, okay, what am I attached to? What is it that I'm longing for? What is it that I'm averse to? That's my attachment. So with mindfulness and clear comprehension, some stability of mind, one can see one's attachment, one tries to let it go. And it's this letting go practice. Things come up in meditation, various thoughts, various desires, irritations. You have good mindfulness, you know it, you let it go. You know it, you let it go. You know it, you let it go. And this weakens it. It's like the old seeds are blossoming, but you don't water it and allow it to fully blossom and drop down new seeds. You allow it to cease, arise, cease, arise, cease. And then with the investigations, we apply right mindfulness, right concentration, and we have a look at the gammatanas that Lord Buddha, this is part of right mindfulness, right concentration, and very much emphasized in the Thai forest tradition because it works, is to have a look at the nature of the body. And this is right mindfulness, the body within the body. It's like a lot of our suffering, perceiving things as a self, comes from identifying with the body. My shoulder pain, my knee pain, my back pain. And when we investigate it as parts, and we investigate those parts as elements, the perceiving it as a self can disappear for periods of time. And when the meditator experiences the body without the self-view being present, then that's when we begin to really understand. It really isn't a self. There's this habitual clinging, habitual grasping, habitual way of perceiving it. But when you start to have some actual experiences of being present, mindful in the body, without thinking it's a self, without grasping it that way, just knowing the body as a body, earth element, water element, fire element, seeing feelings arise, stay for some time and cease, cessation, cessation, cessation. The self-view will disappear from awareness for periods of time, and a different quality of awareness will be present, much more lucid, much more cool and calm, and then the sense of self comes back. But you know after these experiences, oh, it is a way that I'm perceiving things, it's a way that I'm holding things, which isn't actually the truth. There's other things you'll notice as well. When there isn't a sense of self there, there's no suffering. This is the third noble truth. Tanajananand talks about temporary liberations, tatanga vimutti. This is a result of intensive meditation practice. Sometimes it might be samadhi. Good samadhi, no sense of self, no sense of perceptible self, just peace as the object. Come out of the meditation, sense of self comes back. That was a great meditation. Go and tell all your friends. This is a danger, isn't it? That we always interpret experience. The self-view comes back and it becomes our story. But what we have to notice is notice that when there isn't much of a sense of self, there's no suffering. Come back, you make a story about it, there'll be suffering. Why? Well, the next meditation wasn't as peaceful. So, if the sense of self is disappearing from awareness because of insight, there might still be a perception of a body, there might even still be sounds, but there's no being perceiving it. There's just this awareness and a center to awareness that isn't grasping and clinging. And then you'll notice, yes, there really is no suffering when the self-view isn't grasping. Avidya, tanha, and upadana, the craving and clinging based on ignorance. What is ignorance? Ignorance is not knowing the truth. Because of ignorance, we're deluded. Then because of delusion, we have craving and craving for and craving not for. The antidote to ignorance is to know. So this is where Lord Buddha explains to us, right mindfulness, know a body as a body. This is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Know a body as a body. Know feelings as feelings. Know mind states as mind states. Know dhammas as dhammas. Is it wholesome? Is it neutral? Is it unwholesome? If we do that, we come and we sit. We just see the body as a body, feelings as feelings, thoughts as thoughts. Know them, put them down. Know them, put them down. Then the mind does start to experience right concentration. It does begin to have insights. It does begin to have temporary liberations. And this is extremely useful because if you really see the unconditioned, if you begin to get glimpses of what isn't the conditions, then you have a quality that is referred to as unshakable faith. It affects the mind so profoundly, the absence of suffering, the quality of pristine clarity and presence that really, really knows, and no suffering. Once the mind has seen that, it doesn't doubt it. It just knows it is much better. And it's a really wonderful, has wonderful implications and connotations for the rest of your life and however many more lives you have, because once you glimpse your ultimate nature, we have to use the conventions of speaks, there's no you in the experience, but once individuals experience their ultimate nature, they also understand that other beings have that nature. It becomes much more possible to forgive beings, it becomes much more possible to have loving kindness for beings, because we know at heart they're all good actually. They're all ultimately, they all have Buddha potential, Buddha nature, the capacity to purify their minds. The kilesas obscure temporarily. or maybe for a long, long time, maybe forever if they don't uproot them. But we know at the heart, beings are good. At the heart, we all have this incredible potential. So, Lord Buddha kindly explained to us these Four Noble Truths. He says about dukkha, which is very good in meditation retreats, it has to be, sometimes it's referred to as known. This translation says it has to be understood. I prefer the word known. Knowing dukkha with mindfulness. You just know dukkha is dukkha. And as Ajahn Sumedho says, that which knows isn't suffering. And we have to train ourselves as well. When we get a good look at the dukkha that's present in the body and the mind, we rest in the awareness of it. Try to separate that awareness from it. I remember when I first, as a young monk, I said to Ajahn Anan, when I first met him, there's so much suffering in my mind and I feel so weary. I try to make my mind bigger and the weariness grows. I make the mind bigger and the weariness grows. It's just like weariness as big as the sky. And I don't know what to do. If I didn't believe in rebirth, I would kill myself, I said to him. But I do believe in rebirth, so I'm not going to kill myself. But I do wonder what to do. And he says, well, this is not that uncommon. Somebody's question last night, somebody was experiencing the weariness. And he says it's as if you're in a house and the house is on fire and there's nowhere to go and you're on fire with it. And then he says, the house is actually on fire. We might chant the fire sermon later. He says there's nothing wrong with this experience. This is actually the way it is. The problem is, for some meditators, or for many meditators, the sensitivity develops before the equanimity does. And he says, so the only way the equanimity comes is through patiently enduring with it. And he said, you should develop loving kindness to support the conventional self through the process. Start every meditation with 5 to 10 minutes of metta for yourself, and then to your teachers, and then endure it. He said the point will come where awareness is able to separate from the dukkha, and you'll have somewhere to rest. And that's when the Dhamma becomes a refuge. You really do have mindful awareness as a refuge from which you can contemplate dukkha and know dukkha from. But it takes time. The spiritual powers, the spiritual faculties have to be developed from consistent practice. And so, dukkha is to be known, not run away from, not denied, not rearranging the conditions to try to seek as much pleasure as possible. We have to know their limitations and we have to have a good look at them. Lord Buddha then says, dukkha has been known. He knew it. The noble truth of the cause of dukkha has to be abandoned. So this is our craving. This is the living within precepts, meditating, knowing it, letting it go, knowing it, letting it go, doing the contemplations that weaken it, seeing the body as parts, as elements, getting those insights, little insights that become bigger insights. Lord Buddha abandoned it. There is the noble truth of the cessation of dukkha, vision, knowledge, insight, wisdom. This is to be realized. This is where our practice goes. To be experienced individually by the wise, Lord Buddha has realized it. The noble truth of the cessation of dukkha has to be cultivated, developed. Lord Buddha developed it fully, and then he was liberated through doing so. And as the sutta was recited, Anya Kondanya has the insight, all that is of the nature to arise is of the nature to cease, and he became a stream enterer. That's also very interesting. Like many people wonder, I can contemplate that, I can kind of see that intellectually, I can see that all that is of the nature to arise ceases. These ceramic tiles used to be clay, these bricks used to be clay. These light fittings, the glass used to be sand. They will break, they'll degenerate, it'll go back to dust. I can contemplate that. But my mind doesn't realize Nibbana. When you look at the backstory, Anya Kondanya had made a vow to be the first enlightened disciple of the Buddha. It had been a long time that since he could have been enlightened. But one of his last remaining attachments was that he wanted to be the first to be liberated by a teaching Buddha. And it took a long time. He had to wait in the queue probably from all these other people that made those vows. So he was ripe, very, very ripe. His spiritual faculties were very powerful, so he had penetrative insight quite easily, one sutta. In the following days, Lord Buddha taught the Anattalakkhana Sutta, and all of the 5 Panchavakki, 5 ascetics, attained complete arahantship. So it's about repetition. It's about making those 5 spiritual powers, the faith, the energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, Lord Buddha says, when made much of, when cultivated, merge in the deathless and lead to the deathless. So that's what we do. We make much of them, we cultivate them, and have confidence that they will lead to liberation. At first we have a little bit of concentration and small insights. It becomes more concentration and deeper insights, and that becomes liberating insights. So I rejoice in your practice, and I wish you every success. I hope you get some concentration and some insights. I rejoice in your practice.
Let us take a brief pause to enjoy a song titled Peace in Our Mind, a beautifully, profoundly spiritual, uplifting hymn. Please enjoy.
Each and every living being has its own nature, purified and let the wisdom grow. To understand the things in life, to realize the truth, all we need is peace in our mind. Seeking not for ourselves from outside somewhere, find out a hand on our head. Carry on with this mighty role and say you won't forget. Happiness is peace in within. Young prince into this world, dedicating his life to cease all hatred, sorrow and grief. I'm with fondness, love and kindness, can march forward on to little world, to eternal bliss. Sing up for ourselves from outside somewhere. Another day on our head. Carry on with this mighty road and say you won't forget. Happiness is peace in within. Happiness is peace in within.
Our next sermon is by Venerable Bhikkhuni Sensasita. The topic of her sermon is very inspiring. It is recollection of the Buddha and touching the earth. Now, let us welcome Aya Sansita to give her sermon on this topic.
Today we are having Aya Santacitta. If you don't know her, she is originally from Austria and a nun since over 30 years, now living in USA. And Aya, thank you very much for coming to Anukampa community and doing this Dhamma talk. I'll give it to you, Aya, now.
Thank you so much, Manori and Matthias, for hosting the session. And hello, everyone. I know a few people. I know Shirley from Amaravati Times, and know Debs also. She comes to my Wednesday online teachings. And hello, lovely to see you all. As Manori said, I am a nun for over 30 years, and many, many years ago, I met Aya Chanda at Amaravati Buddhist Monastery in Hertfordshire. And since then, we have been on and off in contact. She also came to stay with us at our monastery in California. And, since about 2 years, I'm living now at the Aloka Earth Room in San Rafael. That's close to the north end of the Golden Gate Bridge. And at this point, in time, I'm mostly interested in bringing together the early Buddhist teachings with earth-based teachings. And that's what I'm going to offer today. So I'd like to start, with just 5 minutes settling in. Sensing your body sitting in your room, on a chair, on a cushion, on the ground, and breathing in and breathing out. Being aware of the weight of the body, the gravity which gently pulls us to the ground, the soil underneath where we are sitting. And arriving after a full day, evening, things are slowing down. Whatever has come before today, like a birthday party or work or just a lovely open weekend, it's all in the past now. There might be still some, repercussions in the nervous system, and they can be noted. And at the same time, you can be aware of what brought you here today. What's your motivation for practice? And just making that conscious as well. And then embodying that motivation in the way you're sitting here, how you're participating here. And helping to create that holding space for the Dhamma to come forth. So, and the title, which I have given today is a reflection or recollection of the Buddha and touching the earth. And, we have a set of 4 meditations, which is called the 4 protective meditations. And I've chosen 2 out of this set of 4, which I want to combine today and share with you. And the 4 protective meditations, all of those 4, we can find them in the suttas, but the set of 4 was put together later in about the 5th century Christian era in Sri Lanka, most likely. And they are called protective meditations because they were protecting us from unwholesome mind states. And they reinforce wholesome qualities in the mind, which are essential, for the path. And then, according to what's needed, we can apply them like a remedy, for a bodily ailment. We know what's the illness is, and then we can apply the medicine. And the same with those 4 protective meditations, because they guard the mind from negativity and they are kind of a preventative. And I'm going to just mention them in the traditional order. The first 2 show us the potential of the human mind, and the last 2 show us the limitations of a human life. And they are all together, there are 4 realities of a human life. The first 2 elevate, and the other 2 help us to let go of attachments. And they are bringing some more peace and balance in our lives, helping us, to let go of old patterns and allowing the coming in of the unmanifest, opening the mind, creating space. The first one is a recollection of the Buddha, which I will speak more about today. The second one is meditation on metta, which you already know, I'm quite sure. The third one is practices on the body, asubha, the non-beautifulness of the body, showing us the other side of the body. And I'm going to speak to that today as well in regards to the elements. And the fourth one is recollection of death. So those are the 4 protective meditations, and we're going to do 2 of them today. And they are not, protective in the sense of being a talisman, because they don't protect us from problems, but they give us a way how to meet and relate to so-called problems. And, being able to see obstacles are the way. They are not in the way, but they are the way, because there's constantly something happening. And what we can train in is to become more courageous, confident, practical, and skilled in meeting those so-called obstacles, so that we learn from them and mature and grow. And these meditations, they show us what is true and what is possible. So, the meditation or recollection on the Buddha kind of uplifts the mind and shows us the possibilities, because the Buddha was a human being just like us, and he perfected, the potential of the human mind. And when we are taking refuge in the Buddha, or when we kind of paying homage to the Buddha, then actually we are relating to our own potential for awakening. It's not about, somebody out there who will rescue us, but it's more realizing that we have the same potential as the Buddha has had, and the Buddha has developed it to full blossoming and has left us a teaching, so we can do the same thing as he did. So that's the recollection of the Buddha. Have more confidence in our own capacity and overcoming fear of meeting obstacles, so-called obstacles. Then, the second one, the meditation on metta, is like basically an antidote to anger and a way to create more and more spaciousness also in the mind. Helps us to open the heart and the mind to embrace what is. The third one, asubha, means non-beautiful, and helps us to understand, that the body isn't like a separate thing, a separate entity, but the body consists of many, many parts and is in constant exchange with the body of the planet through eating, drinking, breathing, going to the bathroom, sweating, crying. We never ever cut the umbilical cord towards the planet. And the body can be seen as a riding animal for consciousness, so that consciousness, can have a human experience and grow and learn and develop through that. So what's called the precious human birth. And also shows us, the limitations, because the human body is very vulnerable and extremely dependent on the biosphere. It is part of the biosphere. And we need to learn to realize that more fully. And then the last one is the recollection of death, which, traditionally gives us a sense of urgency and protects us from heedlessness. And that's, when the body returns back to the earth. When, the life energy, has basically exhausted itself and the body goes back into the earth. And it's the cutting edge, really, of impermanence practice. So that's those 4 protective meditations. And now I'm going to speak a little bit more to the 2 I've chosen. So Buddhanusati, the recollection on the meaning of the qualities of the Buddha. That meditation is based on a chant, which some of you might have heard. It's called Itipiso. It lists the 9 qualities of the Buddha, and I just have chosen 3 of those 9 qualities because we don't have such a long time today together, and I could just chant the chant 1 time so you can hear it, and then go through the qualities, the 3 qualities which we will use for the meditation. So itipiso means so he is. And then it lists the qualities in Pali. Itipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vichacharana sampanno sukhato lokavidu anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manusanang Buddho Bhagavati. So that's this list of the 9 qualities. And Arahang is the first one, and simply means, somebody who is completely purified, has let go of all of the defilements, greed, hatred, and delusion. So the meaning is complete purity. And then the next word is Samma Sambuddho, which means perfectly fully awakened without a teacher. someone who fully understands the Dhamma, and that Samma Sambuddho stands for complete wisdom. And then the Vichacharana Sampanno means perfect knowledge and understanding, and also conduct and virtue. And then Sugato means well gone, means, he has gone the Noble Eightfold Path completely. And then Lokavidu means knower of the world, someone who has seen the world, all realms, internally and externally. Externally in terms of, the different realms where we can take rebirth, and internally, meaning, the 5 aggregates, the 6 sense bases. So those 5 internal qualities make the Buddha a reliable teacher. And then we have also 4 external qualities, how the Buddha interacts with others, and why he is a good teacher and guide for others. First one is Anuttaro Purisa Dhammasarati. That means unsurpassed teacher or unsurpassed trainer for people who want to be trained, not for people who don't want to be trained. So meaning, he really understands everyone's capacity and can exactly say the right thing, that person gets uplifted in some way. So it was a perfect guide in that sense. And then we have Satta Deva Manusanang, means that he was not only teacher of human beings, but also of heavenly beings, devas. They also came, for teachings. And in some traditions, they also say, that the animals came for teachings. And then the next word is Buddho, which simply means awakened one, but can also mean awakener of beings, somebody who awakens others. And then the last one is Bhagawa, which simply means, blessed one or holy one, and is still used today, in India for some of the, awakened ones there, they are addressed Bhagavan. And in the canon itself, the word Buddha isn't used very much, but it's the word Bhagava which is used in the Pali. And that simply means, that he has fulfilled all the other qualities we were mentioning based on his great compassion. Countless lifetimes, he has been developing the paramitas, and we know there's the Jataka's tales, which tell us of the different lifetimes. So that's complete compassion. And then when we do the meditation, we just use those 3. And we try, to combine it with a little visualization, if that works for you. Complete purity, and seeing as if the Buddha would stand in front of us, trying to have the sensing his presence, his face, the complexion of his face, the purity. That's the first one, Arahang. And the next one is Samma Sambuddho, complete wisdom, seeing his eyes, seeing the confidence and fearlessness in his eyes. And then the last one, Bhagava, complete compassion, seeing his feet. He was walking for over 40 years, after his awakening through India to teach. Sometimes he would go somewhere where there was only one person ready, to break through. So the compassion. So the face, complete purity, the eyes, complete wisdom, the feet, complete compassion. And then in the meditation, we're just gonna, like a mantra, repeat, repeat, repeat. It's like a samadhi practice, And then see, how the mind responds. Probably the mind will respond by getting calm and opening. And then, noticing that and continuing on with that spaciousness, limitless space, and then also in the end coming back to the ground, coming back to the earth, because the human body, also the body of the Buddha, has emerged out of the planet through the mediation of a mother, and is held alive, by eating, drinking, breathing, and so forth. What it's only everything offered, by the planet. And then seeing, that this very humble, precious human birth of a body, just like ours, can be perfected through the practice into a mind like a Buddha. He had inconceivable influence, on millions of people still today, on this planet. Even he passed away over 2,500 years ago. He lived in Iron Age India. So imagine the power of that mind. And for a moment, you're imagining our mind would be perfected to that degree. In this unbroken chain of transmission, which has been passed down and now given to us at this point, and we do the best we can with it and pass it on. So maybe let's just start with the meditation now, and find a posture. Maybe, imagining for a moment that the Buddha is standing in front of you now. Or if you want, you can have a look at a Buddha statue if you have one on your shrine. And imagine this is a being who has completely eliminated all greed, ill will, and delusion from the mind, to never arise again, permanent. Is fully purified and liberated from samsara, has completely, manifested the greatest potential of the human mind. Just, taking in the face, the purity of the complexion, arahang, complete purity. And then taking in the eyes, samma sambuddho, complete wisdom. Seeing the confidence and the fearlessness. Bhagawa, complete compassion. Seeing the feet, which carried the Buddha for over 40 years through India, walking the Ganges Valley, walking to support others, great compassion, complete compassion. All of those qualities he has fulfilled based on that motivation. And then coming again back to the face, Arahang, complete purity. And then meeting his eyes, Samma Sambuddho, complete wisdom. Bhagawa, complete compassion, seeing the feet which carried him through India almost half a century. Everything was done by walking. Arahang, complete purity. Samma Sambuddho, complete wisdom. Bhagawa, complete compassion. Arahang, complete purity. Samma Sambuddho, complete wisdom. Bhagawa, complete compassion. Arahang, complete purity. And allowing those concepts to sink in and resonate with the mind, with the heart, with the chitta. And noticing, how the mind settles down. Becomes more stable. Arahant, complete purity. Samma Sambuddho, complete wisdom. Bhagava, complete compassion. And noticing, how the mind responds to those concepts as a support for stilling the mind. And the spaciousness of the mind. Being aware of that spaciousness which doesn't end at the walls of the room where you're sitting in. The limitless mind. And with the out breath, letting go into that spaciousness. And then, letting go of the spaciousness and becoming aware of that which knows about the spaciousness. Letting go of the object and the subject, so to say, being aware of itself. Like making a U-turn, and the subject being conscious of knowing. And also not letting go of the identification with the knowing as me or mine, just knowing. And that is the refuge in Buddha, the knowing, awareness. Like a mirror which effortlessly reflects whatever appears in front of it. That's that quality of knowing, the refuge in Buddha. A potential which we all know from our own experience. And the practice is about strengthening that capacity to come back to the knowing, rather than becoming what is known. That is the refuge in Buddha. And resting as that. And having used the mantra in the beginning simply as a portal into that. So, and the capacity to develop that potential depends on having a human body. And this human body has emerged out of the planet through the mother, who has, lent us her body to grow our own body inside of her. So seeing, that very lofty, amazing potential, it has very humble roots just coming out of the earth. So now, bringing our awareness back into the body. And with the out breath, sending down some roots into the ground underneath where we are sitting, to the soil. And with the in-breath, breathing up some of that stability and vastness of the body of the earth. And, experience ourselves as a bridge between those two dimensions, the manifest and the unmanifest. And knowing, this body consists of earth element, which we, take in through eating. And the earth element in the body, in the bones, the teeth, the nails, the hair, is exactly the same earth element as the earth element in the rocks and the mountains. And if we stop eating for 1 or 2 months, the body collapses. The water element, the body consists over 70% of water element. And the water element in the fleshy parts of the body, soft parts of the body, is exactly the same water element as the water element in the rivers and the lakes, the oceans and the rains. And if we don't take in water element for 5 to 7 days, the body is going to shut down. We are totally dependent on what the biosphere provides to keep those bodies going. The fire element comes from the sun and from the center of the planet, because these bodies can only live in a certain temperature range. Then the air, wind element, oxygen coming to us through the mediation of the plant life on this planet. As the plants do the photosynthesis in order to build their bodies, the side product is oxygen of that process, and it's vital for us, for all mammalian, many other animals, to have that. So seeing this deep, deep, deep interconnectedness. And the Buddha, was aware of that. In the night of his awakening, he touched the earth and called her to be his witness that he had done his job, that he had done what it took, to develop that deep understanding, the complete purity, complete wisdom, and complete compassion. And these bodies of ours, they have been developed on this planet for millions of years, like about 2 million years since the species Homo is evolving. A very complex, amazing, sophisticated biocomputer. And which is now receiving an update about the way we are deeply interwoven with the existence of the planet. We are not separate. And we are part of this living intelligent process we call Earth. And we need to participate in a different way now, as we are reaching the limits of what the biosphere can tolerate. So there's an additional investigation now which needs to be added about how to live in harmony with the limitations of the biosphere. In terms of right livelihood. And taking only that which is given. So bringing in another element which was not an issue in Iron Age India, but now it has become one. So bringing in, a contemplation which affects our perception of what it means, to live as a human being on a planet at this time in history. And so there's, becoming part of the immune system of the planet. And peeling away that stuckness, and old perceptions which no longer hold true. They've changed. So in seeing, the Buddha was realizing the highest potential of the human mind, but at the same time, he was very practical and pragmatic and grounded, living outside a lot, walking a lot, being born under a tree, realizing awakening under a tree and passing away under a tree. So he was very deeply connected with nature. And now, those circumstances call us to pay attention and to continue, our inheritance and also taking in the elements which have changed since Iron Age India. As we are standing on the shoulders of our ancestors, being passed down this teaching over 2,500 plus years to us today. And we are handing it on to future generations. But they also need a place to live, a planet which is livable, is also part of what we need to take an interest in. How to do that? Out of compassion. And, allowing that question to be there and walking with that question and becoming the answer by holding the question. And knowing, that we are not alone, we are part of a living, intelligent earth, and we can open ourselves to information. The self-regenerative intelligence of the planet can teach us. Because we have all of the same ingredients as the planet. We are deeply interwoven. So slowly we're gonna come to the end of the practice and like a journey to the limits of the mind and then going down, back down into where we are coming from, this planet Earth. And in a moment I'm going to ring the bell and then, slowly coming back into the room without, losing connection to the body. And taking in, with whom you are here in the room on this journey, we are not alone. We are doing this together. And we have like about 20 minutes or so. If any one of you would like to share something or maybe clarify something. You can just unmute yourself if you like, and please take your time.
If you can raise the hand, I can unmute you.
Thank you. That's good. Surely.
Thank you, Aya, for that really lovely meditation. I've been quite agitated all weekend, and my meditation's been sort of watching agitation, and it's just able to sort of open up and calm down. So thank you. And thank you for the meditation on the Buddha. I very rarely do. I know I did those meditations when I did the retreat with you at Gaia House online with Laura Bridgman, and we did the same things, and it was really good to do them again. So that is a reminder of sort of, because I'm not really a faith person, but it was a reminder that the way you sort of made the heart and the mind open up with the recollection on the Buddha and then coming back to earth. But what really interested me was, I mean, I do love the 4 elements meditation, and that's why I come, on a Wednesday evening, because this is this connectivity, this beautiful sort of connectivity we have with the biosphere, which you talk about so eloquently. And I've always loved the 4 elements meditation, even before I heard the one you did, I think last year with Anukampa, which really, really profound, and I started coming when I could to your Wednesday evenings. But I was very interested that you called it an Asubha practice, because I don't like I like the elements meditation. I don't like the 32 parts of the body. It's not something that really attracts me, and sort of feeling the sort of repulsive nature of the body is not something that attracted me. So I was very interested that you said, you described the 4 elements as an Asubha, because it doesn't, it brings about a certain detachment from this body, because you realize that this body isn't really a thing, it's just a process that's constantly changing and constantly dependent, interdependent, and just flowing. But that can be I find it quite uplifting. I found it quite this sort of connectivity. It feels that, yes, I belong in this, in a way. I sort of belong in this. I'm part of this whole system. I'm sort of not alone, and that's a really lovely feeling. And it doesn't seem. So I'm interested why you described it as a super. But I suppose it does stop clinging to this body. And also there's an awareness, sorry, I'm sort of covering quite a lot of things, but there's also the awareness actually also of the fragility of the body and the whole ecosystem, which can bring up a sense of sadness or urgency. So I'll stop there, and maybe you could make some comment. Thank you so much.
Asubha is strictly speaking, as I said, they always say that, because Asubha doesn't say anything about repulsiveness or anything. That's just a later addition, patriarchal probably, where basically, the monks needed something, to deal with their sexuality, I suppose, and then there was some aversion in it, I suppose, if it's called repulsiveness. But according to the teaching, it's just called non-beautiful, because we tend to have that projecting of beauty, if we see the body from the outside. But then if you cut it open and look from the inside, it's not necessarily repulsive, or but it is certainly not super attractive, and the same is with, if you see the body consisting of like a heap of earth, a little bit of water, and a fire. That's not something to, strictly speaking, call beautiful, so it's not about repulsiveness. That's just like something, which was probably used for young monks, who struggled a lot with sexual lust, which is understandable, and that was a way to help them, but it backfired also to a certain extent, then really believing in the repulsiveness and blaming the women. I mean, I've seen things in the monasteries in Thailand, paintings of women fully, all over with fish hooks, on their bodies everywhere, and all kinds of really weird stuff, blaming the women and not taking responsibility, and then calling it repulsive, just because that would maybe help, but I think because it's not true, it doesn't really help, I think. It's culturally conditioned approach, which is a bit outmoded these days. So call it what it means, not beautiful, and that's a different take on it. And I put that with the Asubha practice because I think the body, in the first establishment of mindfulness, there's these 3 meditations: body parts, elements, and recollection of death, and they all meet, that they're all different facets of looking at the body. And you're right, strictly speaking, it's not a Subha practice, but I think in a way it's 3 facets of a Subha practice, how I see it,
But there is a sort of beauty in the interconnectedness in a way.
Absolutely.
I mean, is that, do you think that's skillful to contemplate the beauty, even though it's fragile? And, but it is, I mean, I think it is also the whole idea is also to cut through the illusion of selfhood.
Yeah, no, but I think the beauty helps, to uplift and create space and joy and so on. And then if there's that spaciousness, then there is more capacity to observe, the fragility of it as well, and then there is a turning away, in that sense, not a turning away, oh, this is all so terrible, but it's more turning away, I don't want to interfere with this whole thing, because it's we cannot wrap our mind around it, but what we can participate in it, but not taking charge.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. It's lovely to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah. And then Susanne.
Hello. Yeah, I really enjoyed the meditations. I have a question about the first one. We were feeling the vastness of the space, kind of, and then you said, now be aware of the one who knows this.
Yes.
And I have lately in the meditations, I didn't quite get there in this meditation, but I just had these experiences lately, I think twice, where I was fully in, how can I explain this? In the one who is, you said it, the one who knows. I would say the one who, like, in my mind, I wasn't looking outside at anything. It was very great feeling.
Conscious knowing. You mean conscious knowing,
Okay. So what do you think it's the same that I'm explaining right now that you mean?
I think so, I mean, I'm speaking from the, it's like the take of the forest tradition, which is, they call it the one who knows, or the Puru, in Thai. But I think I think it's the, resting as the knowing rather than holding, wanting or not wanting what is known. You understand the difference? There's the knowing.
Yeah. There's nothing to be known. It's just it.
Yeah, and objects which are known.
Yeah,
And
there's
once
no more object actually.
when you drop the object, then there is the subject.
That's
That's
me. I mean, whatever.
Not-
I feel as like me
the
at
beginning,
this point.
it's an identification, and then that is also dropped. And
Yes,
then
that's is that the next step, or is that also in that experience that being dropped?
that's the next step. And then it's just the knowing, resting as the knowing without being it or owning it, or But I think what you were saying, I think you're already experiencing that, and it's not anything special. It's so natural that it's so close, that the way how it's described, like by many different teachers in many different books, in many different ways, we start to think it's something, far away from us and unreachable. But actually, it's the most natural way of being. Yeah.
Okay. So, and what kind of views does I mean, for me, it felt like, oh, wow, finally, I'm just, like, there's just joy and bliss and nothing to do, or I don't know how to explain it, but so then I come out of it and almost like the first time I was like sad, like, oh my God, I'm back in this body. Didn't feel good. But then the second time it was all right. But so what is what does it help me with to experience that? Or
Okay. I was actually speaking to that in the meditation, but I'm happy to say it again. If you experience the knowing, that's also a different word of what the refuge in Buddha is, So we can, if anger arises in the mind, in the knowing, if anger arises, we can know anger has a reason. We don't need to identify with the anger and then become angry. You know what I mean? But we can know that anger is there.
Mhm.
And if it has a reason, then it naturally will also cease at one point. And we don't need to necessarily interfere with it, because we usually have a tendency, if a strong emotion arises, let's say anger, greed, jealousy, fear, or so on, we tend to become it, because the energetic experience is painful and we want to do something about it, When it's we're just going to say something and discharge energy, If it's a very strong wanting, we're just going to pull it towards us and hope the energy pattern, goes away. So it's to develop the refuge of knowing of Buddha to that extent by abiding in it again and again, like you just did maybe 2 times or something, and then that the confidence in that we can know this to be impermanent becomes strong, that we are more and more capable of sitting out the most intense emotional triggers. That's why we do this.
Okay.
And this?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
So it's not about, Susanne, it's not about escaping into this wonderful whatever, but it's about living here in that thing, that body, and having such confidence in the refuge of knowing that whatever triggers us, we have increasingly more and more capacity to allow what it is without interfering,
Yeah.
And sometimes things need to be done and said and so on, but not from that triggered place, because that's not going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah, because for me it felt like, well, when I was in that, I was like, I don't need anything, like there's a satisfaction in this being that.
Yeah.
And everything that I'm not satisfied with is because I try to get something from the outside. Maybe that makes me angry. I don't get it, but really, it's not. Yeah, it's kind of less of looking for it in the wrong place. Kind of maybe. Yeah.
That subtle, the subtle joy of the open mind, which doesn't want anything,
Yeah.
The mind, in those moments where the mind doesn't want anything, all wishes are fulfilled for that moment,
Mm.
Yeah. And to taste that, many times, so that even if you're triggered, you remember,
Okay.
because you have been there, and then you remember how it feels like when you're triggered, and then there's the alarm bell going off. Whoa, I'm triggered. I have to be careful now. Maybe I have to just go outside for 5 minutes, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yes. Yes.
So it's what you're doing when you go to that place. What we did in the meditation is you familiarize yourself with the potential of the mind, and that means that's a cultivation, and in Pali it's called bhavana. So, and the word for which is sometimes used for meditation in Thailand is, they just say bhavana. They mean cultivation, familiarization, and in the gom is called, is the same thing. The word which is used for meditation is the same, bhavana, gom, in Tibetan. Mean to get really used to how the mind is, if it doesn't want anything, if it from any of the hindrances, and then knowing this is the natural mind, and everything else is when it's off center.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't need to take it so serious, but of course it's a long way to go, because we completely go under, with it.
Yeah.
You go under often enough with more and more awareness, and then that, the urge to cultivate that knowing, becomes stronger and stronger, because we can see the other ways, they just don't work,
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you for putting it all into the
Yeah.
how it
It's
works
like,
together. Yeah.
it's like going to the supermarket and they want to sell you something, and they say, do you want to taste one cookie, So you have a taste, and then you want more. So you need to get back there.
Okay. So to get back to those experience of the knower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to strengthen the confidence, that this is something you can do.
Yeah.
Because when under the influence, we often get afraid that, we get afraid, and then we are not confident that we have the capacity. And then the more often we have experienced, the more we can remember it, So it's just a skill, like learning the piano, learning to drive a car. It's just like that, Not rocket science.
Yeah. Well, I notice it's much easier to get there with support, like somebody guiding me in meditation, or in a group. I would like to get there on my own as well at some point, but yeah, that's going to take some work.
You will, and for now you just be, in the beginning you go to a piano teacher, you don't sit down on your own like on day one. Sit there for years, just it's just the way it is, we need to first learn to a certain extent, and then you do sometimes alone, sometimes with a group, and slowly you become more independent, but it takes time. It's a skill. Good question. Great. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time to answer it.
Sure. Well, I'm giving another minute or so. If no more questions come, then I'm going to do a dedication of merit and then hand over to Manori for the closing announcements. Okay, so I'm going to dedicate the benefit of our practice today to all of you, to your practice, and also to Aya Chanda during her Vasa retreat at Bodhinyana in Australia. And to my two hosts, Manuri and Matthias, thank you so much for holding the space. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you by the power of all the Buddhas. May you ever be well. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you by the power of all the Dhamma. May you ever be well. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you by the power of all the Sangha. May you ever be well. So thank you so much for coming. And just in case you're interested, I have an online teaching every Wednesday from 9 to 10 Pacific time. That would be 6 to 7 UK time and 7 to 8 European mainland time. So if you're interested, you could visit, the Aloka Earth Room. And while Manuri is making her little announcement, I'm gonna put a link into the chat if you are interested. Thank you so much for everything, and all the best for your practice. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Aya Santacitta, for your meditation today, mixing the Buddhanusati and the beautiful way you did the 4 elements and that boundless mind, which was wonderful. And you also gave us the opportunity to discuss question and learn from each other by questioning as well.
Carry on with this mighty roll and say you won't forget. Happiness is peace in within. Prince into this world, dedicating his life to cease all hatred, sorrow, and grief. Onward from this love and kindness, can march forward on to little world, to eternal bliss. Sing up for ourselves from outside somewhere. Another day on our head. Carry on with this mighty road and say you won't forget. Happiness is peace in within. Happiness is peace in within.
That's all for today's program. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact us at info@buddhadharmatv.com. Thank you for watching. Good night. Namo Buddhaya.